This is my AT3 planning for targeted teaching for evidence of learners 4005. So my students are year seven students and they're made up of 20 students. So the learning needs. So I have one student with ASD level one ADHD. So it is very important for this student that they know exactly where they're going to be in class, to make activities easier and provide a stable environment. For my students with executive functioning difficulties, it's very important that I ensure that the student is provided with visual cues and ensure frequent questioning. Students with chronic illness, Samira may have low attendance, so it's very important. And when she is at school, she may be very tired, so it's very important she gets the nutrition and hydration she needs. For my student with hearing impairment, it's very important that I provide visual instruction. This may be in visual cues or visual cards. And then for special consideration students, English is another language. So there are two students with English as another language. It's very important, once again, that I use visual cues and also offer little symbol cards so that they can communicate with me. And my gifted students, it's very important that I extend them in activities that they are advanced at to ensure that they are learning above their current level. So, what am I teaching? So, the construct being taught is active participation and skill development. The progression I've chosen to use starts off at a low, and students will aim to be at a medium to high level by the end of the progression. The curriculum links source link heavily to the Victorian curriculum and focus on using feedback for body control and movement sequences, fundamental skills, participation, and justifying reasons why to make different decisions and strategies throughout minor games. The rubric aligns with levels of student engagement in physical education and is used to assess students' involvement, effort, and enthusiasm in class activities. These are my curriculum links, and these are the progressions. So, what are my students ready to learn? So, the display below is my sort of Gutman chart. I've used the Gutman chart to highlight three learning groups from emerging learners, developing learners in the yellow, and then the blue group, the proficient learners. I've also used the zone of proximal development to make these 50-50 splits into three groups. This helps me indicate the level of understanding in regard to active participation and skill development of students in the three different levels of low being red, medium being yellow, and blue being high. Alicia has been placed into the red group as her learning ability was too low. However, she still needed a group for my classes. So she will be provided with extra assistance, and these groups will form the basis of the goals in the next slide. Unit 2019 for the zone of proximal development definition. So what are the goals for my students? So the display below shows emerging learners as my low students, developing learners as my medium students, and professional learners as my high students. So these goals have been created for the three different ZPD groups. So as I said, these groups will be all having different goals. So in the emerging learners, students will be able to demonstrate physical skills such as catching and throwing, and these fundamental skills will also, hopefully, they will show that they can improve their ability to engage actively in these activities. Developing learners, students will be able to apply game strategies and improve physical techniques throughout modified games of soccer and netball, and also being able to use feedback to monitor their improvements. And proficient learners, students will be focusing more on leading team activities and refine advanced techniques and set specific measurable goals from the Department of Education and Training. Here is stage one of the targeted teaching understanding by design framework, which was derived by Wiggins and McTeague. The main goal is for students to show their overall goal in improving engagement and progression in physical activities and sports, which contribute to both individual and team growth. I've also linked the understanding to the questions for each ZPD group through colour coordination. So as you can see, emerging learners are in the red, um, developing learners are in the yellow, and proficient learners are in the blue. For stage two, it is relevant towards the evidence which will be gathered from the differentiating learning sequence. This evidence will be gathered through video analysis, exit tickets, peer assessment forms, and self-reflection journals. There will also be an end summative assessment, which will involve a scoring system, which will contribute to the final criteria assessment. So lesson one of the three lessons relates towards students being able to apply fundamental skills through different modified games. So differentiated teaching is also shown throughout, as there is a major highlight on collaborative work when students are working in pairs to help each other conduct the different fundamental skills from developing learners and proficient learners. In lesson one, the teacher takes a direct instruction. So the use of differentiation instruction also allows myself to tailor my approach to meet the diverse needs and abilities of students with learning difficulties. And also, I will be using direct instruction um, throughout, especially with group one and group two. Um, as students will show an increased level of engagement and improved learning outcomes when working together to gain the basis of the skills needed to catch, throw, and shoot. However, groups two and three are more towards being able to use strategies in a modified game of netball and focusing on leadership and teamwork based activities derived from collaboration, LACA 2023. So, lesson two, students from group one are focusing on their ability to follow instructions and engage in activities in pairs throughout the human knot. So, the formative assessment requires a logbook to be filled out on their ability to listen to direct instruction from myself. So, the developing learners will be focusing on analysing game strategies, and the teaching method will be conducted in a collaborative teaching strategy to allow students to work together in a modified game of soccer. Students will also be working in pairs and will fill out each other's logbooks, offering two different perspectives in the one formative assessment. Proficient learners will conduct a student-driven warm-up, which will be videoed to allow students the opportunity to visually assess their ability to evaluate and lead different team activities. Feedback and positive reinforcement is used for emerging learners to ensure they are not making the same mistakes and are showing improvement, as positive reinforcement offers a reward which may encourage their effort and engagement. The teaching techniques for developing learners will be in authoritative style, where the teacher coaches the modified game, and the proficient learners, the teacher will offer guidance to allow students to communicate and show cooperation. In lesson three, this is based upon students being able to apply what they have learned from the first two assessments and put this into a summative assessment, which will be based upon a scoring system. Students and emerging learners will go through three stations and be given a final score for their ability to follow instructions and perform basic fundamental skills. Developing learners will be assessed summatively on their ability to perform game sense strategies, and proficient learners will be designing and leading team activities. The proficient learners will be taught with explicit teaching at the start of the lesson to ensure they can understand positioning required throughout the video analysis. The emerging learners will have the teaching style of hybrid teaching, Baker and Spenceley, to ensure students who may not be able to participate with learning barriers can join in on the videoing or watching from the sideline. The summative assessments that I have included at the bottom are scoring system assessments where students will go through the skills, the strategies, and the leadership and communication techniques, and they'll be given a score for each station. Overall, I've chosen to use formative assessments of exit tickets, logbooks, and self-reflective journals. The exit tickets allow me to track their progress and what they've learned throughout the class. The logbooks are very good and handy as they allow me to see what the student and their partner have come up with and what score they have been given. The self-reflective journal allows me to see how the student is going, as they will be handed back to me after each lesson. And then the end summative assessment in lesson three of skills and strategies assessment conducts with my criteria, as it allows me to view their end score of what they got from the first two lessons to their final lesson and compare this with my main criteria. These are the references I've used throughout my presentation.